The day I checked my trust fund, it didn't say $890,000. It said $0. At first, I thought it was a glitch, a banking error, something temporary. But then my mother said it, calm, casual, like she was talking about the weather. We used it for your sister's med school. You understand, she's the important one. That's when everything clicked. I wasn't robbed by strangers. I was erased by my own family. But what they didn't know was that my grandmother had already seen this coming. And before she died, she left behind something that would destroy them. In my family, there were only ever two roles. There was my sister, and then there was me. She was the future doctor, the investment, the one my parents talked about with this quiet pride, like they were already imagining her name on a hospital wall. Every achievement of hers was celebrated like a national event. Good grades, scholarships, acceptance letters, it was all proof that she was exactly who they said she was. The one who matters. And then there was me. I wasn't a failure. I had a stable job, paid my bills, stayed out of trouble. But none of that counted in our house. Because I wasn't exceptional in the way they wanted. I wasn't going to change the world. I was just ordinary. My parents had a phrase they loved to repeat, usually at dinner, usually when comparing us. "This is our doctor," my mom would say, smiling at my sister. "And this," she'd glance at me, almost as an afterthought, "is the other one." They laughed when they said it, like it was harmless. The only person who never laughed was my grandmother. She saw everything, the imbalance, the way I was slowly being pushed to the side. And unlike my parents, she never treated me like I was less. When she set up the trust fund, she told me quietly, "This is yours. No one touches it but you." I believed her. I believed that, at least somewhere in my life, something had been set aside just for me. Something safe. Something untouched. I didn't check the trust fund often. I didn't need to. It wasn't money I depended on. It was something I knew was there. A quiet safety net in the background of my life. Something my grandmother had built for me, separate from everything else. But that morning, something made me log in. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was nothing at all. The screen loaded slowly. I remember watching the numbers appear, waiting for the balance to settle. And then it did. $0. I stared at it, thinking it had to be wrong.
A glitch.
A temporary error. I refreshed the page once.
Twice.
Logged out, logged back in. Still $0. My hands felt cold as I scrolled through the transaction history. Withdrawal after withdrawal. Large amounts. Clean, deliberate transfers. Not recent either. This had been happening for months. My chest tightened. I drove straight to my parents' house. When I walked in, they were in the kitchen like always. My mom was making coffee. My dad was reading something on his tablet. It looked normal. Everything looked normal. "I checked the trust," I said. They didn't even look surprised. My mom sighed, like I'd brought up something inconvenient. "We were going to tell you," she said. "We used it for your sister's med school."
Just like that.
No apology. No hesitation. She needed it more than you. I waited for something else. An explanation. Regret. Anything. But there was nothing. Just quiet certainty, like they believed they'd done the right thing. My grandmother died 3 weeks later. It was sudden. A stroke, they said.
Quick.
Peaceful. That's the word everyone uses when they don't want to describe the details. At the funeral, people talked about her kindness, her discipline, the way she always planned ahead, always made sure things were taken care of. I stood there listening, hands in my pockets, thinking about the trust fund, about what she'd said. "No one touches it but you." I didn't cry. Not there. Not in front of them. Because something didn't sit right. After the service, as people started leaving, a man approached me. Mid-60s, sharp suit, measured voice. "Are you Gerald?" he asked. I nodded. "I'm your grandmother's attorney. She asked me to give you this." He handed me a sealed envelope.
Thick. Heavy.
My name written on the front in her handwriting. Behind me, I felt it before I saw it. My parents had gone completely still. "Is that necessary?" my mother asked quickly, stepping closer. Too quickly. The attorney didn't even look at her. It was her explicit instruction. He turned back to me. "She said you should read it alone." I took the envelope, my fingers tightening around it. My sister forced a smile. Probably just something sentimental, she said. But her voice didn't match her face. Nothing about this felt sentimental.
I didn't open it there.
I waited until I was in my car, alone, doors locked. Then I broke the seal. The first line made my stomach drop. If you're reading this, they already did it. My hands were shaking as I pulled the contents out of the envelope. It wasn't just a letter. It was a full report.
Organized.
Indexed. Professional. The first page had my grandmother's name and beneath it a title. Independent Financial Review of Trust Account Activity. My chest tightened. I flipped the page. There were bank records, transaction logs,
Dates.
amounts. Every withdrawal from the trust fund had been documented in precise detail, highlighted, annotated, impossible to ignore. And next to each transaction was authorization. Not mine, my parents'. I kept reading. The report outlined how they had accessed the account, how they'd bypassed the safeguards my grandmother had put in place. There were notes from a financial investigator she'd hired months before she died. She knew. She had known everything. Every transfer. Every decision. Every lie they were planning to tell me.
Further down, the tone changed.
Legal analysis. Clear, cold language. Breach of fiduciary duty. Unauthorized use of restricted funds. Potential civil liability. I exhaled slowly, my grip tightening on the papers. This wasn't just betrayal. This was evidence. At the back of the report, there was one final page. No charts. No numbers. Just her handwriting. I recognized it instantly. I gave them a chance to do the right thing. If you're reading this, they didn't. My vision blurred for a second. This was never about the money. It was about whether they would choose you when it mattered. I swallowed hard, because now I had my answer. And for the first time, since the trust hit zero, I wasn't confused anymore. I was done. I didn't confront them right away. I waited 2 days. Long enough to think clearly. Long enough to let the anger settle into something sharper, something controlled. When I finally walked into the house, they were both there, sitting at the dining table like it was any other evening. My sister was with them, scrolling through her phone. Normal. That word almost made me laugh. I got something from Grandma's attorney, I said, placing the envelope on the table. That got their attention. My dad frowned. We already handled all of that. There's nothing left to discuss. I didn't respond. I just opened the report and slid the first few pages toward them. My mom glanced down, then froze. It was subtle, but I saw it. The exact moment she realized what it was. This is ridiculous, she said quickly, pushing the papers back. Your grandmother was old. She didn't understand. She understood enough to hire an investigator, I said calmly. Silence. My sister leaned forward, scanning the documents. Okay, so what? It was for my education. I'm becoming a doctor. That benefits everyone. I looked at her. It wasn't yours to take. My dad's voice hardened. Were your parents? That money was part of this family. No, I said. It wasn't. I tapped the page with the legal summary. It was restricted, protected, and you broke those conditions. My mom's voice cracked slightly. What are you trying to do? Nothing, I said evenly. Then I pulled out my phone. I already sent a copy to a lawyer this morning. The room went completely still. No one argued after that, because for the first time, they understood they weren't in control anymore. The legal process took 4 months. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady and final. My lawyer didn't waste time. The report my grandmother left behind wasn't just helpful, it was decisive. Every transaction, every violation, every step they took was already documented. All we had to do was present it. My parents tried to fight it at first. They called it a misunderstanding, said it was family money, claimed they had every right to use it. But the law didn't agree. The trust had been structured with clear restrictions, and they had broken them, knowingly. By the second month, their tone changed. Less confident, more desperate. They offered to settle. I accepted, on my terms. Most of the money was recovered. Not all of it. Some had already been spent, but enough to restore what mattered. What they didn't get back was control. My sister stopped calling me entirely. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just silence. I heard through relatives that med school had become harder for her. Without the financial cushion, without the certainty she'd always had, things weren't as easy anymore. For the first time in her life, she had to stand on her own. My parents tried reaching out a few times. Messages, missed calls, long texts about family and moving forward.
I didn't respond.
There wasn't anything left to say. I sold the house a few months later, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Too many memories tied to something that wasn't real anymore. I moved into a smaller place. Quieter. Simpler.
Mine.
And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't realized I'd lost.
Peace.
Not the kind that comes from pretending everything is fine. The kind that comes from knowing exactly where you stand and choosing not to go back. Sometimes people ask me if it was worth it, if I regret taking it that far. I always give the same answer.
No.
Because they made their choice long before I made mine. They chose who mattered. And my grandmother just made sure I never forgot who didn't.